Quiet Chaos Driving Me Mad, Chapter 12. The two of us shook hands at my request, and she left the room, Sam walking out the front door and closing it behind her. I could hear the voices of both of my parents when they spoke, though it was largely inaudible, and I had no interest in the exact things being said. It was probably some reassuring on their part that things with me would work out, and that Sam should just give me the time to take in being surprised by her backroom activities relating to other males. I walked down the hallway with footsteps that were about as loud as I'd ever allow them to be. Any other time I would have to worry about disturbing someone or having one of my parents reprimand me for the sounds made by whatever pair of shoes I was wearing. With the two outside, this was one of the rare occasions where none of that mattered. I did pause while in the hallway to overhear my siblings. The TV was playing in Corey's room and I could hear the sounds of moving on the mattress in Sarah's. I went into my bedroom and felt a vibration from my pocket, pulling my cell phone out of it to see if Trey was calling. "Hey," I said. "Are you okay?" he asked me. "I'm doing about as well as I can. I was a little disappointed with Sam and her little back door thing with the guy she used to be with." "She called him during a date?" "No, he called her during the date. And then what happened? I got fed up, paid for my stuff in advance, and took it home with me." It was with that line that I realized my food had been left in the back seat of the car. I stepped through my room door, wordless, and opened the front door of the house, stepping into the porch and going over to my car. "I don't usually get quiet like this," Trey said. "You don't usually get quiet like this," Trey said. "She must have really bothered you with that, huh?" "The main reason for my silence is trying to focus on walking outside," I answered. Now holding the bag, I looked across my car and saw Sam conversing with both of my parents. My mother and father had their backs turned from where I was standing, but Sam's face was in my direction and she waved at me. Her hands flopped around during the gesture, and my parents turned their backs to see me as soon as her waving commenced, me returning one to her with the most forced smile I could come up with. I proceeded to walk back into the house and placed my phone on speaker after closing the front door. "Trey, can you hear me?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "What happened?" "She's still out there talking to my parents. Wonder what kind of talk they're having. Something in her favor. It wouldn't have gone on for this long were it anything else." "You sound annoyed." "I am. They're probably casting her as the victim of that encounter. The poor woman who didn't know how to stop her former man from calling her." "Because apparently blocking numbers doesn't exist," Trey said. I laughed. "That's probably the first thing anyone said today that's actually brightened my day," I told him. "Glad I could help," he said. "Hey, you think you'd come over at some point tomorrow?" "Yeah, maybe during the afternoon." "Cool, I eagerly await your visit." We hung up, and there was a knock at my door as usual. Before I could even say anything, my father walked into the room. "Son, I've just finished a long conversation with Sam," he said. "Okay," I replied, unsure of what he was going to tell me. "That woman is serious about trying to get to know you." "Didn't you say this before you spoke with her?" "Oh, yeah." "Then wouldn't this conversation between you and I be a massive regurgitation?" "Oh," he said, throwing his head back. "So now you don't want to talk to me?" "Not about her, no. Something else would be more ideal." He turned his head and remained wordless as though he was trying to overhear something. His head fell back slightly and he walked out of the room, opening Sarah's room door. "What are you doing with Mentos?" he asked her. "Eating them," my sister answered. I walked into the room, Sarah sitting on her bed, a package of the candy in hand. I breathed a sigh. "I thought she was doing something else," I told my father, turning my head to him, "but it's just candy." "But I told her she couldn't have that candy, any other candy, more than once every 2 days, he told me. "How many days has it been?" "Ask your sister." I looked over to her, Sarah placing another Mento in her mouth. "I'm guessing you had some yesterday," I said. And today she's practically spitting in my face." I didn't mean it," Sarah said, throwing another Mento into her mouth and chewing it for a few seconds. "But they're just so good." My father stepped over to my sister and threw his hand out toward her, Sarah placing the Mentos wrapping in his hand. "You have no respect for me or my rules," he shouted at her, walking out of the room and closing the door behind him. She turned the television on and placed her hands behind her back. I stared at its contents, her choosing to watch a program that had some cartoon characters violently attacking each other, before moving to sit at the tail end of the mattress. "How come you defied him like that?" I asked her. The candy was so good, she told me, becoming giddy with just the thought of it. But was it worth hurting your relationship with your father? My dad won't be mad at me forever. That is true, but wouldn't you have rather he not have been mad in the first place? She stared ahead at the television while I looked at her. Yeah, she answered. Then maybe try waiting the amount of times he tells you to do. He tells you to, I told her. You could always eat the candy the next day. How come you always take mom and dad's side? Because they hold the keys. The house keys? I nodded my head. The house keys, the car keys, all of them, I replied. What do keys have to do with food, she asked. Because you don't bite the hand that feeds you. I placed my hand in front of her. Imagine a world a few years from now where your mom and dad aren't around, I said, and the only adult left in our immediate family is myself. I'd be tasked with feeding you, paying bills, going to work every day, and other things relating to you and our brother. Do you think if I'm doing all these things, I'm going to feel my efforts are appreciated when you disobey an order of mine? Probably not. Right. Sarah let her head down and leaned into her chest as though not wanting me to see her face. So how do you think your father feels? Probably not good, she answered. Exactly. Do me a favor, go apologize to him and only have that candy when he wants you to for a week and I'll give you a toy. She placed her hands on my sides and pushed her head into me, looking up in my face while her neck touched against my chest. She had a smirk that was about as wide as her face would allow. Really? She said, pressing her hands against my sides and effectively squeezing me. Yes, I answered. I placed my hand on her head. You know what you have to do for the last thing to happen, I said, walking out of the room. I closed the door behind me. If she had retained any of what I said beyond the reward at the end for doing what she's supposed to do, then she would know to come through that door by opening it for herself. I could see the legs of my parents sticking out there through their open room door while they were seated and having a discussion about Sarah. The girl is stubborn, my father said. All this over some candy, my mother asked. All this over some disrespect. Just calm down. She needs to be punished like for acting like this. I ought to ban candy forever. That wouldn't work. She probably would get Augustus to buy it for her or have Corey say that it was his. I'll think of something. Keep looking for ways to punish your daughter beyond what's necessary. I walked into my room and closed the door, shutting my direct pipeline to their conversation. I noticed a text message on my phone from Anne. How come you haven't hit me up? She wrote. I have no reason to, I replied. Wow, I just mean nothing to you now. Well, how can I have an incentive to talk to you if you're not going to meet me halfway? What? I called and texted you once a day for several days. You complained about this and did not contact me with any regularity, sometimes going weeks without saying anything. I realized that I could reach out to you as much as I wanted, but if you're not going to show interest back, what's the point? I can call you if you want, but can you listen to what I'm saying? There was a knock at my door. Sarah walking into the room. I said sorry to him, she told me, jumping into my arms. That's good, I replied. What did he say? That he was going to think about it. That's about as good as you're going to get out of a response from him when he's like this. I really hope he gets over it. I do too. She had placed her head to lay on my chest, me holding my cell phone in one hand while this embrace was transpiring. That hand was visible to her and she pointed at my phone. Do you talk to your ladies with that? She asked me. I've spoken with women on here before, yes, I answered. What do they tell you? Why do you care? Because siblings tell each other things, not these kind of things. I placed her to stand on the floor and opened my room door, placing my hand in the doorway and backing up enough for someone to walk through. You want me to leave just because I asked one thing? Sarah asked. Yes, I already have had a minor headache. She walked out of the room, slamming the door shut behind her. The phone initiated the buzzing sequence of someone calling me. Looking at the screen and seeing it was Anne, my mind deliberated. Surely I needed to move on from a woman that had tried skullduggery in the past, but since she was contacting me, maybe this was some sign that there was a part of her that valued our interactions. So I answered. Hello? I said. Yeah, Augustus, she mumbled over the phone, the sound of moving on the mattress being audible in the background. What are you doing? Some work. You don't sound like you want to talk to me. I wouldn't have responded to your text messages or answered this call were that the case. She didn't say anything for a few moments. I think you need to reconsider that comment, I told her. You never call me anymore, she noted, way to jump to a different subject. How come you don't want to talk to me? Did you hear any of what I just said? I wouldn't have answered the call if I didn't want to. You're going to stop talking to me forever soon. That's kind of already happened. You won't answer when I call you and you hang up minutes into calls started by you. You make me sound so dodgy. That's because you are. Now, why did you call me? You didn't act like this when we first met. You would always be excited to talk to me. That was before you treated me like piss. I just didn't answer some calls. What, are you going to crucify me for it? I sat down on my bed, placing the phone on speaker and looking down as though she had manifested on the screen. You have chosen to forego paying attention to a man that strove to reverse the choices made on the part of the three guys you laid down with. I said, I believe you will continue this with other men as years go by until you have aged and proclaim that no good guys exist. You have crucified your own existence.